Hi kawan, welcome to EDCReady. Today we are finally doing the review of this guy. This is the Bibury Plier Multitool 19-in-1. I'm not kidding, that is actually the name. See? Bibury Multitool 19-in-1. And I have three disclaimers here. The first of which is that this guy was provided to me by Tools. I went to their store right around my birthday, and then 2 weeks later they sent me a couple of Bibury tools to check out to do a review. Now that was a couple of years ago, and I'm sorry Tools, I didn't have enough confidence to just come out the gate after about a month of use, because let's be honest, outside of an SD Classic or PS4 Squirt, I don't really use that many multi-tools. But after using this guy for about 2 years, I feel like I have enough of a feel, enough of a usage for it to actually give a full review. I've taken this guy camping, I've taken this guy hiking, I fixed my camping stove, I fixed my kitchen sink, I have fixed my robo vacuum, I've done a lot of smaller stuff around the house with this guy, and I can safely say that this guy has been pretty useful to me on a day-to-day basis. So that is the first disclaimer. Second disclaimer is that there is a version 2, and there are a couple of differences between this and the version 2. The first of which is that this has inbuilt wire cutters, whereas the version 2 has replaceable wire cutters. On top of that, this is the version 1 pouch. The version 2 pouch has a difference as it has a little pouch here for a small bit kit set, because this guy does come with a 1/4-inch bit kit and it's double-ended. So with those, with the new version, I think you have possibly 3 new bits. You gotta check up on that. There's a link in the description box down below which will take you to the sell site for the on Thomas Tools for this guy. Another thing is that, yes, the elephant in the room, third disclaimer, this looks a lot like the Leatherman Wave, the first generation. It has kind of the same feel, it has the same ergonomics, even has the rulers on the side here. Don't know if you can see that. It even has rulers on the side here. The version 2 definitely is a clone of the Leatherman Wave Plus. And to be honest, they're not trying to fool anyone here. They're not creating a counterfeit Leatherman. They are stamping their own brand here, which means that it is a clone. It has all the similar feature sets, or 90% of it, but they're not trying to sell it off as a Leatherman. They're trying to sell it off as their own brand. Now, the price difference is going to be huge. The Leatherman Wave Plus is about, I think, $120 now, whereas the version 2 of this Bibury Multitool is 179 ringgit, which is right around $40, maybe slightly less than $40. So it is about 30% of the price of a regular Leatherman, and the version 1 to the Leatherman Wave is pretty much the same difference as well. Now, as I already mentioned, I have not used a lot of multi-tools in my life. Most of my life, a simple SD Classic or a PS4 Squirt would do. I have carried this guy for a long time as well. So I'm not going to be comparing it with the Leatherman Wave, because I do not have much experience handling or using it, and I definitely don't own it. But I'll be comparing it with what I have here today. Now, next up, let's go over some dimensions. Let me take out my weighing scale. This guy is relatively heavy. Okay, let's wait for it to zero rise. We are coming in at 9.4 ounces. Compare that with this guy. This is the Victorinox Soldier. This comes in at 4.6 ounces. And for giggles, let's put the the Victorinox SD Classic coming in at 0.7 ounces. And something a little bit more generic, which is this guy. This is the CJRB Pyrite. This comes in at 2.7 ounces. So there you go. Definitely one of the heavier multi-tools that I have. I very seldom carry this in the pocket. Most of the time it's in the sheath on my belt, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Let's do some measurements of the dimensions. That's stock inches. Now, my calipers died on me. So this is what we have. We're looking at just right around 4 inches in length. In terms of its height, we are looking at 1.5 inches. Right around there. And in terms of its thickness, we are coming in at, let's see now, we're looking at 0.75 inches. That's kind of how high we're getting. These are estimates because my calipers are dead. Now, a difference between this and my other reviews is that we're actually going to go through each of the tool one at a time, talk about the pros and cons. Starting with the pliers. Now, this is a plier-based multi-tool. You have knife-based multi-tools, and then you have plier-based multi-tools, and these pliers are actually pretty good. Okay, they have needle nose pliers at the top here, and they do come to a nice pinch at the top here. Sometimes it does wiggle out of place a little bit, and then you get it slightly off center like that, but it does come to a very fine pinch at the tip there. Very, very nice. Needle nose pliers actually line up pretty well. Then you have the regular pliers here, which actually not bad for opening up bolts in my experience. And definitely these needle nose parts, great for pulling out hair outside of your robo vacuum, which I fixed with this guy before. Now the pliers are really good. I've used it to cut up small, really tiny twigs. And you can definitely cut wire and strip wire with it. It also has a little wire stripper at the bottom there. You can see that little gap there. Great for stripping out wire. And just overall, a good tool, a good plier that you have that can carry with you on a day-to-day basis. In terms of ergonomics of the plier, is very good. They're not spring-loaded like the Leatherman Rev, but just like with the Wave, you have these nice rounded edges here. They also serve as a ruler. And because of those nice rounded edges, this guy is actually pretty comfortable to use in hand. So I really enjoy using this guy as pliers. I'm not sure if I've already mentioned it, but I've used this guy a lot around the house. I fixed my sink, fixed my robo vacuum. I have gone hiking with it, fixed my camping stove. Just a great overall user around the house. So that is the plier. You can see there, it says there's stainless steel. Now the steel that is used throughout this whole construction is, according to Thomas Tools website, 420J2 steel, as part of the 420 line of steels that you have out there. So it's relatively tough and supposed to be relatively stainless, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Now, one thing about these pliers is that they are very loose. I've had this for some time, and they're like super loose, which is nice. Sometimes with a lot of these plier based multi-tools, they can get pretty rough in this movement right here, but in this case, super smooth to use after a few weeks of fidgeting with it. Very, very nice. Now let's go to the outside tools. We have 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting with this guy, we have a regular drop point blade. Okay, this is coming in at, there's my ruler, this I believe is coming in at 2.9 inches. There we go. Yeah, coming in just under 3 inches, around 2.95 inches of blade. You have a lot of flat here, short amount of belly, and a nice strong tip. This tip here is definitely more of a hardy tip. Okay, this is comparing it with a CJRB pyrite. See that the pyrite tip a lot thinner at the end, great for poking, but this one better for piercing because it's a little bit thicker at the end. You don't have a very high flat grind. Flat grind really only goes up halfway through, so this is more designed to be tougher rather than slicier. That being said, I have used this guy. It's an okay blade. It's not like the sliciest blade, but it's not as bad as like these pry bars that you have out there. It's about as slicey as my ZTO for 50CF. Okay, which has a very similar blade profile, but the flat grind goes up a little bit higher. Now, I just want you to show you guys this. Now, this part of the multi-tool has rusted before. So what happened was, I had this guy in a pouch. It's a green little zip-up pouch that I put in my hiking bag, and I was hiking with it for about 6 hours. Pulled it out, noticed that there was some very light surface rust after about 6 hours of hiking. Now, I did not clean it. Okay, I just kept it in my bag. I did not know my sweat permeated through the bag and through the pouch, and I just left it in the pouch for like a week. I took it out, and it has this slight amount of rust. Okay, compare that with this guy, because this guy was in the exact same pouch with me for that 6 hours, and I left it in the bag for that week as well, sitting in the sweat. And you can see here it's dirty because I use it a lot, but there's absolutely no rust on the blade and no rust on any other part of this multi-tool. Let's see now, what is that? Yeah, that's not rust, that's like some residue. Yep, it comes right off. So definitely the 4.116 steel of Victorinox, aka the Victorinox steel, definitely a lot more stainless than this guy. In terms of edge retention, it kind of holds its edge very similar to this guy and other Victorinox that I've used before in my past. I have a Victorinox Huntsman that I've had for over 20 years. In terms of edge retention, it's the same. It's just that this guy seems to want to rust a little bit more. But still, that is like a week sitting in my salty sweat after 6 hours of hiking. Assuming you wipe these down, you're not going to really have a problem, because there's really no rust on anything else other than the sharp tools that's in this toolkit right here. Next up, we have a pretty nice file. We have a diamond file on one side, which is very nice. We have a cross-cut file on the other side. And then we also have a file on this top here. This is just a single layer file. Good file, good length. It's good for like trimming down edges on the side. If you have well, when you're hiking and you want to kind of carve out a little stick for you to roast marshmallows, this is great just for taking the edge off of that point of that stick to make it a little bit safer for my daughter to run around with. So no complaints about this guy. Next up, we have here, that is the blade. We have here a serrated blade. I've never had to use this before, but it looks a lot like the Spyderco serrations, just a little bit upsized. Again, I've never used this before. Still sharp, no rust on this guy. But overall, it seems to be pretty good. Last but not least, we have a saw. A saw that is thinner at the top than it is at the bottom. Really good for when you're sawing down. It doesn't really split the wood that you're sawing through. Again, I've never used this guy, but it has some massive resemblance to the Leatherman saw. So I'm assuming it'll work the same. Now, one thing about all of these tools is that they tend to come loose quite easily. This here is, I believe, T9. I believe I used T9, and they're not security Torx, they're regular Torx. So quite often I'm having to go back to these and like retighten it and then realign it so that it centers up again. Just keep that in mind, it does get a little loose. So right now it has side-to-side blade play. So here has side-to-side blade play, but sometimes it also has up and down blade play. So the knife going up and down, it does wiggle just a tiniest amount, about the same amount as wiggle as you get from a side-to-side blade play of a Benchmade bug out, and side to side as well. You're gonna need to tighten it. Now, is this a security problem? Is this a safety problem? I really don't think so, because I'm really not using this guy as hard as I'm using even my dedicated knives. And if I do need to use a multi-tool knife, I'm gonna use the Victorinox one, which is going to be a lot stronger than that guy. Okay, and that is true about all the tools. All these outside tools here, they have some side to side and a small amount of up and down. Even the even the file has that. So that doesn't give a great sense of security. Okay, but just keep in mind, I've never used it to the point that I'm worried that this is going to be a security issue. The saw of all these tools that are used the least, so it has the least amount of blade play up and down, but there's still blade play, so keep that in mind. Next up, let's look at inside the smaller tools that we have here. Let's go to this guy. So this guy is a 1/4 inch bit holder, and all the inside tools lock just like Leatherman Wave is with a tiny back lock. And this guy uses a double-ended bit with a detent ball that goes inside, and you have a very pointy Phillips head. So this guy, you can open up bigger Phillips head, but because it's so pointy, you can actually get into the smaller Phillips screws. And then you have here a little flat head bit right here. Now this is great. There's not a lot of options because you only get two. Now I did buy an extra bit kit for it. However, because of the length of this, when you put in a regular bit kit, it's a whole lot shorter, so it really goes down all the way. So what I recommend is, and I have this, it's not with me right now, but I have the bit kit extender that you put in there, and then you can put your 1/4 inch bit kit there. It's not Leatherman one, it's a generic one, but that kind of solves the problem. But just keep that in mind, that it does work better with these double-ended ones, which is why the version 2 has these double-ended ones in extra proportions for you to take home. Okay, so that's it. It's just straightforward, nothing fancy. It unlocks. Now on the other end, you'll start to see the wave similarities come out even more. Okay, you have this little can opener thing here. Works really well. It's nice and sharp on this side. Okay, you can definitely pierce through cans, no problem. And it has this very interesting wire stripper here. So what you do here is that you take a wire and then you kind of press it inside of here, and then you just roll the wire. So it takes out the rubber wire that's on the outside, and then you just get the metal or the copper wire on the inside. Really good, straightforward tool. Nothing really to complain about. We have a few tools here. Now this is different from the Leatherman. Okay, so the Wave has a little screwdriver a precision screwdriver for eyeglasses, and it has a flippable, and it is also flippable. So you have flips on one side and flat head on the other side. This guy only has the flat head, and it's really, really thin. Great for if you actually want to get into prying something very, very tiny, like small phone cases or the back of a phone. And this guy does come in pretty sharp. I've never had to use this because I don't wear glasses, but if you wear glasses, you will appreciate this. It does come in very, very tiny though, so you can really pry some really small things if you really need to. Speaking of prying, it does have a tiny little pry bar here. Come on. Yeah. So it has a little pry bar here, which I really like. This pry bar is actually quite a beefy pry bar. If you compare it to, let's say, the flathead of a Victorinox, it's right around the same thickness. Okay, but the Victorinox tapers down a little bit more. This guy tapers down a little bit less. So even though it's kind of the same thickness, this guy can get into slightly thinner wedges for you to do any kind of prying, which is very, very nice. The last tool I'm going to talk about here is the scissors. Yeah, and this scissors, well, it almost looks exactly like the Leatherman Wave one, and I quite like it. And this is the other tool that actually started rusting. So I don't know why the non-sharp tools are fine; they didn't really rust, but the ones that are sharp did get rusted a little bit. So I'm really not sure why that is. So the big question is this as good as, let's say, a comparable pair of scissors from Victorinox? Let's take that guy out. Okay, let's compare them, shall we? Victorinox scissors in the SD Classic are going to be a little bit smaller, but overall they're about very similar in size. The cutting length of this guy is definitely longer than the cutting length of this guy. In terms of the precisionness of it, okay, the Victorinox ones are really thin, so a lot more precision can be held with this guy compared to this guy, which is a lot burlier. But how does it perform? Well, to be honest, they perform better than each other in different categories. If you want to cut something that's soft, you want to cut string, okay, if you want to cut thread, this guy is actually going to do a better job throughout the entire scissor, okay, not just the back but the front too. It's actually great for very fine cutting, cutting of thread and things of that nature. This guy is actually better at cutting up something that's a lot thicker, okay, harder material, like this guy. This is paracord. Okay, you put this guy in here, it'll cut it, no problem. Okay, put it in here, see, no problem. It actually does better than the Victorinox when it comes to all these harder materials. Okay, let me get this guy back out. Victorinox, see, it's actually a little bit tougher. It can cut, but this guy, because it's slightly burlier, slightly more hard use, it can definitely go through harder materials slightly better. Okay, it's also spring loaded. It has this weird detent feel. Okay, like for it to get over the spring, there is a slight like click that you get right before you close it, whereas this guy, completely smooth because of the design of the spring. See, this spring is pushing it in that direction, kind of like an omega spring, but this guy is just a little flap that goes up to the top, and then you get this little click sometimes like when you close it. Now there might be a few other smaller tools in here which I can't really remember, but these are kind of the tools that are really obvious. So I'm just going to talk about the obvious tools. You do have a little ruler here, just like with the Wave. You have a 6-inch, is this 6 inches? Yeah, you have a 6-inch ruler on the top, and then a 20 centimeter ruler, or 19.5 centimeter ruler at the bottom. Okay, so that is an overview of all of the tools of this Bibury 19-in-1 plier multi-tool. Now, what is the conclusion here? As you can see, I'm not gonna lie, there are some... Oh, before that, I forgot to talk about this. This guy, little pouch that comes with it, it's actually a pretty good pouch. It goes in there, it fits. There's no extra room for any bits on the sides, on the front, or pens or flashlights on the side. But this clip is actually really well done. You don't need to clip this onto a belt. You can straight up clip this onto your pants. And then the way it's designed is that it actually holds onto the seam of the pants really, really well. Putting it on your belt is going to be a little bit better, but you can actually put it on the seam of your belt. It's actually very difficult to remove this whole thing from the seam of your pants, and overall it does a really good job. Really, really like that. Okay, back to the full conclusion. My conclusion is that if you're an average Joe kind of guy, if you are someone who, how you say, needs to use this on very casual occasions, sometimes you need to fix your sinks, sometimes you need to fix your vacuum, sometimes you need to fix your camping stove, this is going to be a great tool for you. If you need a multi-tool for your income, or to save your life, or if you need a multi-tool to survive, then you're going to want to do something a little bit higher end. You're going to want to get a Leatherman Wave, for example, or Leatherman Surge, something that is going to be definitely built better. It's going to have an amazing warranty, that you know that your income and your overall survival can be supported by it. Or, and I'm just throwing an idea out there, if you're a true tradesman and you are a plumber or something like that, you're gonna spend a lot of money to get a very nice screwdriver set. You're gonna spend a lot of money to get a very nice pliers set. And you don't need to spend a huge amount of money to get a Leatherman because you have all these other amazing tools. But if you need something that's quick in a pinch and a backup, you're gonna get this guy. So there are three categories here. The first is someone like me, who is someone who just needs something around the house for the rare occasion that something breaks down. This is gonna be good for you. If you are a tradesman and you need a lot of high quality tools, you're already gonna buy those high quality tools and you just need something on your belt that is cheap that you're gonna beat around. This is gonna be great for you. If you're only using a multi-tool, or using a multi-tool for about 75-80% of the time, and your income and your life depends on it, then you're gonna get a Leatherman. But the price difference is just huge. 30% of the price of a full Leatherman is a great it doesn't really justify spending 3 times or 4 times as much to get a Leatherman. Okay guys, just a little reminder that there are links down below. This is a little patch from EDC My. Thank you to my friend for giving this one to me. And as always, stay ready.